Okay. So, as I told you, we are going to start with the chapter today that is Weathering the Storm in Ersama. Fine. This chapter has been taken from your book, The Moment. So basically, this chapter is written by Harsh Mande, who is an author. He's also a communist, he's a teacher, and he is a social activist. So he keeps on working for the homeless people, for the street children. And that is the reason why he wanted to highlight this storm situation of Odisha to all of you. Okay, if we talk about the title of the chapter, weathering means facing. Here, weathering we are talking about when you face the challenge. That is what weathering is. So basically, the chapter's name is Facing the Storm in Irsama. Okay. In this chapter, we are talking about the strong cyclone which hit the Orissa on 27th October 1999. Okay, and the character which is being taken in consideration is Prashant. Fine. So here, basically, the chapter starts with where the author is trying to tell us that the cyclone that hit Orissa in October 1999 killed thousands of people and devastated hundreds of villagers. Devastated means destroyed. Okay, please keep on marking. For 2 dreadful nights, Prashant, a young man, was marooned on a roof of a house. Here, marooned means when you are trapped at an uneven place. Okay, when you are trapped in a very adverse situation. So here the author is explaining that in this particular storm situation, Prashant was trapped on a roof with his friend for 2 nights. On the third day, he decided to go to his village. So we'll read about that whether he's able to find his family or not. Because when the storm hit Orissa, Prashant was at his friend's place in another village. Fine. When the cyclone hit. So after the things were calmed down, the cyclone returned back. He decided to go back to his place, his village, and look for his family member. That whether his family is safe or not. Okay. So here on 27th October 1999, 7 year after his mother's death. So Prashant has lost his mother. Prashant had gone to a block headquarter of Ersama, a small town in coastal Orissa, some 18 kilometers from his village. So he was 18 kilometers away from his village to spend the day with a friend. Okay, it was a day spent. In the evening, a dark and minacking. Minacking here means threatening. Okay, very horrified. So a minacking storm quickly gathered. So definitely when first the storm gathers and then it hits the coastal region. Wind beat against the house. So beat against the house means the wind was blowing against the house and was damaging the houses with a speed and fury. Fury here means anger. So the wind was very angry, very strong, very loud that Prashant had never witnessed before. Heavy and incessant rain filled the darkness. Ancient trees were uprooted and crashed to the earth. So, these lines have been explained by the author so that you can come to know. You can imagine that particular scene in your mind that how horrifying that storm was. Okay? So, how horrifying that storm was. This is why the poet is explaining so much. Okay? So, here the author is saying that heavy and very constant, incessant means constant, continuous rain started and filled the darkness all around. Everywhere it was very dark. The ancient trees also, the ancient tree, they are rooted very much inside the ground and it's really very difficult to move them out. But here the storm was so strong that even the ancient trees were crashed to the ground. They were falling down, okay, and they were uprooted. They were just blowing out in the wind. Screams rent the air as people and houses were swiftly washed away. The angry water swirled into his friend's house neck deep. So the water, when the coastal areas are hit by any storm, the water in the sea, they comes and hit the coastal region. So same was happening there, and his friend's house was swirling. The water was moving all around, circling his friend's house, and it was neck deep. So this was the level of the water. The building of the brick and mortar. Now here mortar means a mixture of lime and cement. Fine. So the buildings was of brick and mortar. So the buildings did not uprooted, did not crashed, but they were getting fractured. Fractured means some portions of the buildings were breaking in that particular storm. Why? Because the speed of the wind, the velocity of the wind was 350 kilometers per hour. Fine. So it is what happening here. Fine. Now let's proceed further. But the cold terror of the family grew with the crashing of tree that had got uprooted and fallen on their houses. So actually the houses were not getting crashed, but the trees were crashing and they were falling on people's house. That was actually a terror for them. They were very afraid of it. Fine. Sometime in the middle of the night, damaging its roof and walls. And the roof and walls of the houses were getting damaged, getting fractured. Okay. The crazed destruction wrought by the cyclone and the surge of the ocean continued for the next 36 hours. Just imagine the same kind of situation for 36 hours. It's not an easy work for anyone to survive. So, crazed here means violence, the strong, violent situation. So, here the situation of the storm was very violent, okay, and that has made the destruction very horrifying, and the movement of the sea continued till the next 36 hours. Although wind speeds has reduced, although the wind speed, the velocity of the wind has reduced, but the situation was not at all in control. So by the next morning, to escape the water rising in the house, Prashant and his friends, family had taken refuge on the roof. Refuge means when you keep yourself at a safe place. So because the water was moving into the coastal regions and they were drowning the houses, so his friend's family were there on the roof. Prashant will never forget the shock he experienced at his first glimpse of the devastation wrought by the super cyclone in the grey light of the early morning. So when it was morning, early morning, the gray light when the sun is starting to rising out. Fine. So Prashant was very scared when he saw the glimpse of the destruction, the way the cyclone has just spoiled and destroyed the whole area. He was afraid to see that. A ragging, deadly brown sheet of water covered everything. So every area was covered with dark, muddy water. Okay, it was all water everywhere. Because you might have studied in tsunami that when any storm or any cyclone hit the coastal region, the high waves of the sea, it covers the coastal area, and the whole coastal area drowns into the water. Okay, and after the cyclone is over, the sea water starts going back into the sea as the waves. And when it goes back into the sea, it takes all the things along with them. Fine. So here Prashant is saying that it was all black water, muddy water that has covered the area. Only fractured cement houses. Fractured cement houses means the partially broken houses were there standing. Otherwise, everything was gone. Okay. Blotted animal carcasses. Carcasses means the dead body of animals. Okay. Here we are studying two sentences, carcasses and corpses. Carcasses is the dead body of animals and corpses is the dead body of human beings. So everywhere, the dead bodies of animals and human beings were floating in all the directions. All around, even huge old trees had fallen. Two coconut tree had fallen on the roof of their house, his friend's house, and they were utilizing those coconut to keep themselves, to kill their hunger. Okay, this was a blessing in disguise. Blessing in disguise is an idiom. Okay, when something good happened in a very worse situations, everything is going wrong, but something good comes out of that bad, is what the meaning of blessing in disguise is. Please underline this. It's an idiom. because the tender coconuts from the tree kept the trapped family from starving. So they were eating those tender coconut flesh which is there inside, and they were trying to kill their hunger. Fine. For the next 2 days, Prashant sat huddled. Huddled here means gathered, means many other people were also there. It was not only Prashant, with his friend's family in the open on the rooftop. They froze in the cold and incessant rain. So it was very cold and continuous rain was there, but they could not go down into the house because everywhere it was water. So they had to stay up on the roof for 2 days. The only thought that flashed through his mind was whether his family had survived the anger of the super cyclone. So, although he was himself trapped in such an adverse and devastating situation, but the only thought which was coming in his mind was the concern for his family. He was thinking that this cyclone is so dangerous, so horrifying. Okay, so whether his family have survived or not. Was he to be bereaved once again? Bereaved here means sorrowful. So he was thinking that once I have faced this situation, and will I be sad again if I go and find my family? 2 days later, which seems to Prashant like 2 years, so those 2 days which he spent on the roof of his friend's house was like 2 years. And we all know that time is always extended when it is adverse. Fine. So that was just like 2 years for him. The rain ceased. So now the rain ceased means stopped. The rain has stopped now, and the rainwater slowly began to recede. So the water which was filled there in that particular area, they started going back. It recede means going back, returning. So it started going back into the sea. Prashant was determined to seek out his family without further delay. So he got ready to go and find his family. Fine. So he got down of the house and he took a strong stick. He equipped himself with a long, sturdy means a thick stick, so that with the sensation of the stick, he can feel whether the road is or not, because everywhere it was still water. Then started on his 18-kilometer expedition back to his village. So he has to walk 18 kilometers to go back to his village. Fine. So he started walking, and while he was wading here means when you walk into the water. Normal walk is a different thing, but when you walk into the water, it is known as wading. So he waded through the water. The scene was so horrifying, so frightening that he himself was a lot worried about his family. Okay, he had pushed away many human bodies, the dead bodies of men, women, children, and the carcasses, the dead bodies of animals were floating on the water. And when Prashant was wading through the water, he was removing those dead bodies and he was moving further. Prashant, now he was not able to control his feeling. Okay, so he started crying, he started weeping very loudly because he finally accepted that his family would not be there anymore. Fine. Eventually, Prashant reached his village, Kalikuda. The village name was Kalikuda. His heart wept cold. So he was very cold, he was very sad at that particular time because he saw the worst situation of his village. Some of their belongings were caught mangled. Mangled means hanged. So those his belongings, his familyhood things, his household things were hanging here and there on the branches of the tree. That was also frightening him again. Young Prashad decided to go to the Red Cross shelter to look for his family. So all the people who were rescued from this particular village were kept in a Red Cross shelter home. So he decided to go there and look for his family rather than finding them inside the house, because he was very aware that nothing would be left there in the house. Among the first people, so whom he saw the first? In the crowd, he was his maternal grandmother. Maternal grandmother means his nani. So he saw his nani coming out from that particular place. Okay, his nani was very weak with hunger. She rushed to him, her hands outstretched. She raised her hand and she hugged him and she started breaming, eyes breaming. Breaming means overflowing. So she started crying a lot. It was a miracle. So he was very happy that finally one of the person was alive there. They had long given him up for dead. Fine. So they have struggled a lot and killed the dead. They were still safe. Quickly word spread, so word spread, everybody was aware that Prashant is there, and slowly all the family member of Prashant, they gathered there. Okay, they hugged tightly Prashant because they were also very much worried that whether Prashant is alive or not. His brother and sister, his uncle, his aunt, they all seems to be there. So finally everybody from his family was alive. Okay, by the next morning, as he took in the desperate situation in the shelter, he decided to get a grip over it. So the situation in the shelter was very, curious. People were very much dying to eat. They were sick. They were crying. So Prashant here, in spite of suffering along with them, he decided to hold the situation. Okay. He decided to do something for the people there. So he sensed a deadly grief settling up to 1500 strong crowd in the shelter. So near about 1500 people were there in that Red Cross shelter. 86 lives were lost. This was the record which was there. 86 people have died in the village. All the 96 houses had been washed away. So there were 96 houses in the Skullikut, and all the houses were washed away by the water of the sea. It was their fourth day at this shelter. So far, they had survived on green coconuts. So till the time they were surviving on the green coconuts, they were eating the green coconuts and they were keeping themselves safe. But there were too few to go around. Such a tumult of people. Tumult means noise of people, noise, chaos, lots of grieving. Fine. So now the coconuts were over and now they needed the food. Class, before the class gets over,